Okay, يلا بينا. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we're going to talk about transport and plants. And احنا طبعا عارفين ال transport and plants is all about it's all about transpiration and translocation. مش كده؟ It's transpiration and translocation. You're okay with that, Ustaz Omar? Okay. So let's see how the questions are going to tackle these 2 points. بيقول لحضرتك ايه بقى؟ بيقول لسعادتك والله يا سيدي الفاضل. What are the features of a xylem vessel؟ احنا عارفين ان الزايلم vessel بتاعنا all the contents have been removed مش كده؟ عشان الزايلم يبقى بيعمل two functions بتوعه اللي هم ايه؟ الزايلم بيعمل transport and support. In order to be able to do both, the contents have been removed. فعندنا no cell contents and no cell end walls مش موجودين. وبعدين حضرتك عندك الايه ال walls have become impermeable because we've added something called lignin. Okay, so it's a hollow tube because all the contents have been removed. والwalls, the side walls بقى اللي هم دول, they are thicker because they have the lignin which makes them impermeable. وبالتالي هنا side walls are thick and end walls are absent. طيب كلام جميل. The next question is asking us about wilting. واحنا عارفين ان wilting is all about water loss is more than the water uptake. فبيحصل عندي deficit. The water lost is more than the water uptake. طيب فبيجي يقول لحضرتك ايه اللي حصل بقى when the plant is wilted. The cells in the leaves have lost their internal pressure. Let me remind you ان ال internal pressure بتاع leaves جاي من ان الفاكيول بتبقى turgid. Vacuoles are turgid and therefore they are applying pressure on the cell walls فبيخلي البلانت ايه واقفة على حيلها. لكن لما حضرتك بتبقى البلانت wilted بيبقى عندنا loss of the internal pressure فبنقول لحضرتك انه ايه الفاكيولز have become empty والخطوة الأولانية دي اللي بنسميها flaccid وبنقول there is loss of the internal pressure. طيب كلام جميل. يبقى the cells in the leaves have lost their internal pressure. Are you okay with that يا عمر?
Yeah, miss.
Okay. And then what is translocation? Translocation is the movement of the food in the phloem vessels اللي هي الفيسلز المسؤولة عن transport الفود. وحضراتكم الفلوم دون بيخلي عندنا ايه بقى؟ الفلوم دون حضرتك بيخلي sorry, phloem vessels, sucrose and amino acids are transported in the phloem vessels. بالتالي حضرتك, this is how the food is going to be transported inside the plants. طيب كلام جميل جدا. اوكي دوكي. الأكل بيبقى transported in the phloem vessels as amino acids and sucrose in solution. يبقى الترانسبورت بيبقى amino acids and sucrose in solution. طيب كلام جميل. The table shows the rate of water uptake and transpiration of water in a plant during the day. حلو قوي. At what time does the plant show signs of wilting? Signs of wilting معناها إن ال uptake is less than the transpiration. يبقى we are going to look for a time when the water coming in from the roots is less than the water being lost from the leaves. فحضرتك بتقول لي هنا they're the same. هنا water uptake 15 and 16 is more than 7 and 12. The only time when the water uptake is less than the water lost, that's at 12 noon. Okay, do you see how we've answered this question and how we've tackled it, Omar? Okay, يبقى wilting معناها إن water loss is more than the water uptake. فبالتالي we're just going to go along those lines, these rows, and find out where is the water lost more than the water uptake. طيب كلام جميل. In this diagram they're asking you in which section through the leaf answer questions 14 and 15. What takes place in the structures indicated? طبعا احنا عارفين ان inside our vascular bundle حضرتك part 3 is the xylem lower one is the flow. يعني التركة في السؤال ده ان احنا نبقى عارفين ان 3 is the xylem و 4 is the phloem. طب انا هعرف منين؟ Because we've already taken that. We've taken that the upper half of the vascular bundle في الليف is the xylem. طيب فحضرتك هتقول لي والله 3 is the xylem يبقى 3 is transporting water.
Please.
Sorry?
Miss, could you tell me what Y is, please?
Y is what?
Miss, I wrote air spaces.
Hang on. يعني احنا دلوقتي in this question, are you following with me? 3 is the xylem and 4 is the phloem.
Yeah.
Okay. وبعدين هنا بيقول لك
Sorry.
transport of water to the cells of the leaf بيحصل من xylem 3. So that's 3. So these are out because 3 are the vessels responsible for transport of water. Use of water to make sugar. Use of water to make sugar is going to happen in the palisade mesophyll. مش احنا عارفين ان الميزوفيل cells هي اللي بتعمل. Okay. That's completely messed up the spelling. Palisade mesophyll. This is where the water uptake is going to be used في photosynthesis. فهو هنا بيحصل في الميزوفيل cells اللي هي الباليسيد والسبونجي هم دول اللي بيعملوا الفوتوسينثيسيس. وبالتالي out يبقى 3 and 2 automatically transport of sugar is going to happen at 4 which is the vessels for the food. فعلى طول our answer is B. Do you see why it's B? Are you okay with that يا عمر?
Yes, Miss.
Okay. اللي بعدها بقى بيقول لك the leaf is losing water to the atmosphere. What process is occurring at X and Y? طيب at X هنا at the surface of the mesophyll cells we have evaporation. وبعد كده at Y بيحصل عندي diffusion. Evaporation and diffusion. You wanted to ask something about this question. What is it? Are you okay with this one يا عمر? يبقى حضرتك.
Yeah, Miss, I'm saying, Miss, I didn't know what X and Y was.
Okay, X is the spongy. X is referring, يعني X هنا is pointing to the surface of the spongy cells. The X هنا is pointing to the surface. Can you see that? It's pointing to the surface of the mesophyll. Y, as you said, is the air spaces. So Y is the air space. But X is the surface of the mesophyll cell. Surface of a mesophyll cell. Spongy mesophyll. So هنا أنا عندي evaporation is taking place. وبعدين هنا بقى water drops are going to diffuse out of the stone. Okay. طيب. Let us see بقى الإيه next question. The next question is telling us a hello screen. Okay. Next question is telling us which of the following needed for protein synthesis is carried into a leaf through the xylem. Wallahi, what the leaf needs for protein synthesis, it needs the nitrate ions اللي هي بتستخدمهم as a source of nitrogen. Source of nitrogen علشان تعمل الامينو acids. يبقى what is needed for protein synthesis على طول حضرتك ده الايه النيتريت ions. طيب كلام جميل. In an experiment to compare water loss, 4 similar leaves are treated with petroleum jelly and left on a table for 1 hour. احنا already عملنا هذا الكلام. لو تفتكر احنا كنا عملنا ال 4 leaves و covered it من فوق once من تحت و once both sides. طيب which shows the water loss from the leaves most to least. طبعا ال most water loss هيبقى لما يبقى neither is covered. مش كده يا عمر؟ يعني احنا هنجيب الليفز 4 leaves واحدة هنكفر من فوق وتحت which is number leaf 3 we're going to put the Vaseline on the top and on the bottom. فدي هتبقى the least. يبقى both surfaces covered. This is number 3. يبقى this is the least loss. أهو. وboth surfaces exposed. This is the most loss. Neither surface covered. That's the most. So the answer is going to be D. طيب تعال نشوف بقى what's happening in between. يعني أنا عندي least is 3 and the most is 4. فخلاص يبقى أنا هنا automatically عمر my answer is 4. Let's check بقى. لما upper surface only is covered, I'm going to have more water loss عن لما يبقى lower surface only covered. ليه بقى؟ علشان stomata, distribution of the stomata. Most stomata are on the lower surface. فبالتالي when you cover the lower surface, you are covering up most of the stomata. وبالتالي the next in line to be minimal water loss is when you cover the lower surface. When you cover the upper surface, you're still leaving a lot of open stomata at the bottom, so you're going to lose a lot of water from the undersurface. Are you following معايا عمر? So حضرتك الorder بتاعهم is D. You didn't even need to bother about those upper or lower لأنه هو already حضرتك قايل لك إنه إيه؟ إنه just by getting the most and the least in order ده هيظبط لك. Just by getting the most and least in order هيظبط معاك. Are you following عمر؟
Yes, miss.
اوكي يا حبيبي. طيب بعد كده بقى جينا عملنا ادي البلانت بتاعتنا و after 24 hours عايزين نشوف ايه اللي حصل. If you look here you'll find the leaves at the bottom are sort of dangling down a bit, which means ان حصل mild wilting هنا. يعني the water lost أكتر من water gain. يبقى water loss is greater than the water gain. How could you tell? By just looking at the shape of the leaves. The leaves are like hanging down. طيب كلام جميل. Which substances is transported by the xylem؟ هم على طول الwater والminerals، فعلى طول حضرتك كده على طول the answer is D. The diagram shows a shoot growing from a potato tuber وبعدين بيسأل حضراتكم what is being transported in the phloem cells at X. طبعا احنا هنا under the ground وبالتالي مستر عمر هنا دلوقتي السورس بتاعي is my potato صح؟ هنا حصل عندي reversal بقى. البوتيتو is the source والfood is going to be transported in the phloem vessels. طالع نازل لتحت وطالع لفوق. طيب ايه النظام؟ هتقولي at X الفود is sucrose وamino acids in solution يعني sucrose and it's moving upwards. At X the food is moving upwards. طب الفود starch ولا sugars؟ لا طبعا sugar لأن starch is a large insoluble molecule. يبقى هنا answer is D. How is the rate of transpiration affected by decreasing temperature and by decreasing light؟ احنا عارفين ان الحاجات اللي بتأثر على transpiration 4: temperature, light, wind and humidity. 3 الأولانيين as you increase them they increase the transpiration. Humidity is the only one that works vice versa. If you increase the humidity you decrease the transpiration. وبالتالي decreasing both light and temperature is going to slow أو decrease the transpirational rate. مش كده؟ يبقى أنا عندي الاتنين هيعملوا لي decrease. طيب this is one of those interesting questions where you need to do some critical thinking. بيقول لحضرتك هنا والله احنا الفيلد بتاعتنا was flooded by seawater. Salty water جت غرقت الفيلد بتاعتنا. What's going to happen to our plants؟ فقال لحضرتك والله in spite of ان الفيلد was soaked in the salty solution إلا إن variety X ما تأثرتش. يعني plant X زي ما هي. لكن plant Y along the 10-day period the numbers of plant Y اللي موجودة have died out. يبقى percentage of the plants alive بقى minimal. ليه؟ Because for plant Y لما حصل salty solution ده the plant has been losing water. ازاي losing water؟ أفكر حضراتكم إن إحنا كنا بنقول water enters into the root hair cell by osmosis. من ال high water potential برا لل low water potential inside the plant. فلو أنا عندي salty solution حوالين ال root hair cell يا أستاذ عمر بقى إيه؟ بقى زي ما يكون برا عندي concentrated salt solution. فبقى concentrated solution يساوي ايه؟ low water potential. فعندي low water potential بره و high water potential inside the cell, so the water is going to start to move outwards. Therefore, cells and plant Y are going to die out. The water is going to leave the root cells of Y. طيب السؤال اشمعنى هي it left at Y and it didn't leave at X؟ لأنه نوعية plant is different. ممكن plant X حتى وبره فيه salty concentrated solution، لكن هي plant X بقى عندها concentrated salt solution جواها. يعني برضو in spite of having salty solution بره، بس طبيعة plant X has even more salt than that، فبالتالي المية ما زالت هتدخل في ايه؟ في plant X. Are you okay with that يا عمر؟ عمر
Yes, miss.
okay حبيبي. يبقى this is one of those questions that needed quite a bit of thinking. إنه واشمعنى plant X ما تأثرتش و plant Y اتأثرت؟ because from one plant to the other you have different concentration of salts inside the plant. علشان كده sometimes when you want to grow certain plants in your garden, you have to get someone who is an expert to tell you if you could grow that kind of plant in your garden or لا. يعني مش في أي حتة هقدر أزرع مانجا، في أي حتة هقدر أزرع جوافة. لازم تعتمد على طبيعة السويل، طبيعة السويل وطبيعة البلانت بتاعتي so that like I can actually grow it in that condition. فأنا هنا plant X was a variety that was resistant، قدرت تقاوم الملح العالي وما تأثرتش. لكن plant Y on the other hand لا، plant Y كانت vulnerable واتأثرت لأن هي الكونسنتريشن اوف صوت جواها مش عالي قوي، فاول لما بقى فيه concentrated solution بره خلى الميه خرجت منها. طيب جينا قال لك هنا بقى والله the table shows 4 substances and the part of the plant in which they are transported, which are examples of translocation. احنا عارفين ان translocation is the movement of sucrose and amino acids. Okay, translocation is sucrose and amino acids. طيب حلو قوي، ده الترانسلوكيشن. The graph shows how the rate of transpiration is affected by X. طيب مين كل ما يزيد كل ما الترانسبيريشن تقل؟ الوحيد اللي عكس هو الهيوميديتي. الوحيد اللي هو when you increase it the transpiration becomes less is humidity. أمال the other three what would their graph look like? The other three would look like this. كل ما أزود اللايت كل ما أزود الترانسبيريشن، كل ما أزود temperature كل ما يزيد الترانسبيريشن، كل ما أزود الwind كل ما يزيد الترانسبيريشن. So it would look like a straight line. لكن بالنسبة للhumidity it's the other way around. As you increase the humidity the transpiration is decreasing. أهو كل ما increase أكتر كل ما transpiration becomes less. يبقى the other three would look like this اللي هم wind light with temperature. This is how their graph would look. طيب حلو قوي. Again هنا بقى جاي يسألك بيقول لك إيه؟ The diagram shows the appearance which environmental conditions are most likely to cause this change. إحنا اتفقنا change هنا ده عبارة عن wilting. wilting معناها إن الwater loss زايد increased loss. اللوس اكتر من الابتيك. طب ايه اللي مزود عندي اللوس هنا؟ تقول لي والله ان انا عندي low humidity هيزود الترانسبيريشن وعندي high light هيزود الترانسبيريشن. يبقى he's asking you which of these would affect the transpiration, increase the transpiration, low humidity and high light. تمام كده يا عمريكم؟
Yeah, miss.
Just stop me if there's anything I'm going too fast or if there's anything not clear. In which state does water
Okay,
enter and leave a plant? طبعا حضرتك water enters as a liquid and leaves the plant as water vapor. زي ما كنا بنبص من شوية. كنا بنقول إن water is evaporating from the surface of the mesophyll cells وبعد كده بقى water drops water vapor ده diffuse out of the stomach. طيب. Which conditions of humidity, light, and intensity and temperature make transpiration slowest? Slowest هي دي التريك. مين من دول هيخلي transpiration low؟ فتقول لي والله transpiration low يبقى ايه؟ Sorry قول لي يا عمر.
Miss, could you go out? Could you tell me June 08 again, please?
This one, it enters as a liquid and leaves as a vapor. Okay, it comes from
Okay.
from the soil into the roots as a liquid and it leaves as a vapor from the stomach. طيب هنا بيقول لي the slowest. امتى بقى يبقى عندي the least transpiration؟ least transpiration means highest humidity، يبقى واحدة من الاثنين دول. وبعدين if I'm going to have the least transpiration يبقى أنا عايزة low temperature و low light. يبقى الأنسر is D. يبقى whenever you look at a multiple choice question, usually you can cross out two answers. زي ما احنا كده we excluded A and B لأن دول low humidity. وبعد كده you look at the other two بقى variables اللي في السؤال. طيب هنا بيقول لك the diagram shows the stem of a plant. A strip of the outer tissue including the phloem has been removed. يعني هو جايب لنا هنا ادي الستم بيقول لنا this is the xylem وهنا this is the phloem tissue. Phloem tissue has been cut out. طيب المفروض ايه اللي يحصل؟ المفروض in this plant المفروض انه الفلوم بس we're carrying the food from up downwards، مش كده؟ كنا بنقول ان احنا الفلوم vessels are carrying the food upwards and downwards. فهو لما جه هنا كده هو and he cut out the phloem vessels يبقى الفود مش عارف يوصل down، جاي من فوق ومش عارف يوصل down. يبقى اللي هيحصل بالنسبة للإكزامبل اللي قدامنا ده إن الفود will come and stop at this point. It cannot go beyond. How is transport in the plant affected? الأمينو acids and sucrose cannot pass to the roots. فعلا إحنا جينا وقطعنا كده فالأكل مش عارف to move down to the roots because this is what's carried in the flow. What shows the correct translocation of carbohydrate in a potato plant that is growing in bright sunlight? The correct translocation of carbohydrates when there's bright light. Bright light معناها إن the leaves are making photosynthesis، مش كده؟ Bright light معناها إن الأكل is formed by photosynthesis. وبعدين it's going to be translocated لفوق and down. يبقى source of the carbohydrate is the leaf. ليه؟ Because there's light. There's bright light. Type of carbohydrate to be translocated. احنا عارفين انه ال food moves inside the plant as sucrose. Where is it going? It is going to the potato tuber. يبقى B is our answer. B is our answer. طيب. Cacti have fewer stomata other than other plants. طبعا لأن هما they live in dry conditions, they're xerophytes واحنا عايزين نقلل ال water loss فعندهم fewer stomata. How does this help them to survive in the desert? Because it reduces the loss of water. Straightforward. The plants اللي في الصحراء عندها fewer stomata. Stomata are on the undersurface of the leaf. الستوماتا كنا بنقول كمان يا عمر ان هم sunken in شوية وكان عندهم hair like structures من بره عشان اي مية تخرج تبقى trapped حوالين الستوماتا. كل دي محاولات ان احنا نقلل الووتر لوس للبلانتس اللي في الديزرت. وكمان كنا بنقول لحضرتك زي الكاكتس في منهم ما عندهمش leaves او leaves reduced to spines، واللي عندهم leaves يا عمر ممكن يبقوا rolled up on themselves عشان نقلل ال surface area exposed to the light زي ما انت قلت لنا المرة اللي فاتت. وكمان البلانتس اللي بتبقى في الديزرت كمان يا سيدي الفاضل يبقى عندها thick waxy cuticle علشان برضو نقلل الووتر لوس من السيرفس. طيب كلام جميل. جايب لنا بقى الستراكشر ده وبعدين بيقول لك والله احنا هنا فين. طبعا هو قايل لك انه في الستام بس you could figure out you're in the stem because of the way the bundles are arranged. طيب what is Q؟ والله Q is your xylem and that should have been easy to answer لان احنا عملنا diagrams دي سوا يا عمر وقلنا ايه؟ قلنا ان الزايلم is on the inside. امال مين اللي on the outside؟
phloem.
برافو عليك. يبقى phloem tissue is on the outside. Phloem tissue is on the outside. Okay. The diagram shows a section through a leaf under the microscope in which part is the carbon dioxide concentration the lowest. The lowest is at B. اشمعنى? Because on a sunny day معناها انها بتعمل photosynthesis. So this is the place where most of the photosynthesis is taking place. So it is sucking up the carbon dioxide and using it. فمش هتلاقي carbon dioxide هنا because it's being used up by the cells. كلام جميل. طيب الزايلم بيعمل ايه؟ والله الزايلم بيعمل transport and support. فده حاجات tic tac questions مش كده؟ دي one of the tic tac questions. Straightforward facts ما فيهاش كتر كلام. الزايلم بيعمل support and transport. طيب ده كلام كويس جدا. To the point. Some liquid is collected from the xylem in the stem of a plant. What is present in the liquid? Inorganic ions. This is another way of saying minerals and another way of saying salts. يبقى ions أو inorganic ions أو ممكن أقول لك nitrates أو أقول لك magnesium salts أو phosphate salts كلها different ways of saying in xylem is carrying salts with the water. Translocation occurs in the phloem tubes. Aphids feed on the contents of phloem tubes. Aphids are insects, حشرات، وندخل في كلام details عالية على الموضوع ده في ال A level. لكن as far as we're concerned here, they're just insects that feed on what's found inside the stem, inside the phloem vessels بتاعت الstem. طيب which type of food would be lacking in their diet؟ يعني في ايه مش موجود؟ So this insect comes يا أستاذ عمر كده هون and it just puts its proboscis هنا into the phloem vessels. طيب حلو أوي، دي حشرة اهي and it's going to feed on what's found inside the phloem vessels. Okay, what isn't there? What's not found there? هل في amino acids في الفلوم vessels؟ أيوة طبعا احنا عارفين إن الفلوم فيه amino acids and sucrose in solution. In solution معناها هلاقي water، هلاقي sucrose وهلاقي amino acids. يبقى what will not be found inside the phloem vessels is fats. لكن amino acids موجودين، sucrose موجودين، وكلمة in solution يا عمر معناها إن هم they're dissolved in water, which means there is water inside the phloem vessels. طيب which substances do root hairs take from the soil؟ root hairs بتاخد ايه from the soil؟ بتاخد water and minerals، وحتى كنا اتفقنا ان water enters by osmosis والminerals بتدخل by active transport مش كده؟ unless they tell us ان concentration عالية في السويل، وفي الحالة دي بقى المية تدخل by diffusion. طيب فكرة they're trying to be creative علشان نتكلم في نفس البوينت، يعني احنا بنلف وندور على نفس الكونسبت هنا. فبيقول لحضرتك ايه the diagram shows two shoots at the start of an experiment on transpiration. كويس برافو. What are the readings on the spring scales after springs balances after 3 days؟ يعني هو عمل الريدنج في الأول ولقى الاتنين وزنهم 30. طيب ليه حاطين oil؟ This is an interesting thing because sometimes you'll see a question like this in paper 6. هو ايه الحكمة من وجود oil هنا؟ الحكمة من وجود oil to stop any water from evaporating. يعني احنا هنا there's no water going to evaporate from the surface of my test tube لأن أنا حاطط a layer of oil. يبقى any water that's going to be lost has to be lost from the plant itself. طيب حلو قوي. What do you expect to see بعد 3 days؟
Oil stops the evaporation.
Yeah, عشان بتعمل a layer at the top. الأويل بيبقى at the top of the water and it does not evaporate. Oil does not evaporate. وبالتالي حضرتك any water lost from shoot X or shoot Y has to be lost from within the plant itself. طيب كلام جميل جدا. يبقى احنا ايه اللي حاصل بقى؟ فتقولي لي حضرتك انه you expect more water loss هيحصل من shoot X لانه هنا you're getting water to evaporate from the surface of the leaves. يبقى you're getting water evaporating from shoot X. فالماس اللي هنا ده يا أستاذ عمر will go down because water loss has taken place. طب الناحية التانية مفيش بقى، مفيش water loss لأنك ما عندكش leaves from which to lose the water. ممكن يعني technically يبقى فيه very mild لكن هو ما ادالكش الأوبشن ده، فخلاص 25 and 30. Are you okay يا عمر with this question?
Yes.
Okay حبيبي. طيب هنا السؤال ده شفناه أكتر من مرة بطرق مختلفة. قال لك it shows stages in the passage of water through a plant. The circles are the starting points of 4 arrows to show the direction in which the water moves. Which circle must have an arrow pointing downwards only? طبعا حضرتك دي أنا ممكن المية تبقى داخلة in all directions، مش كده؟ مش لازم downwards بس، تدخل من كذا اتجاه. طيب في C جوه الزايلم vessels هتقولي المية طالعة. So it's not going، لو أنا جيت في الارو هنا هعمله upwards. طيب هنا تقولي والله المية will move in all directions. طب وبعدين هنا بقى the water is leaving out of the stomata. This is the only direction it's going to move. يبقى B is my answer. This is the only direction for the water to move out of the plant. هي it came in وطلعت وبعدين it's going to go out. يبقى في الزايلم C it is only moving upwards. In D it is moving inwards into the plant, so there's an arrow مش downwards ولا حاجة. In A it is moving in all directions. B this is the only arrow that's moving downwards. طيب هنا السؤال ده سؤال ظريف بيتكلم عن coupled chloride. فبيقول لحضرتك دلوقتي coupled chloride paper is blue. Coupled chloride paper is blue. When it comes in contact with water it becomes pink. كلام جميل جدا. فهم بيحطوا coupled chloride paper on the surfaces of a leaf عشان يشوفوا how fast it turns pink. لاحظ بقى ان هي the time taken for it to turn pink، كل ما التايم يبقى قصير كل ما معناها الwater loss كبير. It turns pink quickly, which means a lot of water is being lost in a short period of time. فيجي يقول لحضرتك through which leaf surface was water lost most quickly. Most quickly اللي هو هنا. اشمعنى lower surface of X? Because it took the shortest time to turn الblue coupled chloride into pink. يبقى احنا بنجيب الليف بتاعتنا اهي ونيجي نحط من فوق coupled chloride ونحط من تحت coupled chloride ونعمل بالتايمر ونشوف how long it takes for this to turn pink. كل ما يبقى water loss faster كل ما it turns pink quicker. So it will take less time to turn pink. يبقى أنا هنا التركة في السؤال إن أنا أبقى مدرك إنه the faster it turns pink, that means the more water that's being lost from that surface. تمام كده؟ Okie dokie. طيب. What is a description of transpiration, loss of water vapor from the leaves and stems of a plant? طبعا. Transpiration is the loss of water. In which order does water pass through these structures in a plant? ده تيك تاك question يا عمر. يعني ايه؟ يعني المية بتعدي من الروت هير تدخل على الزايلم ومنها على الميزوفيل. This is the correct order. مفيش order تاني.
Miss, when I give, Miss, there was a question like this.
بس كان مختلف. I know. Yeah, we're gonna meet it. لكن هنا انت it starts من الروت هير سيل وبعدين هيبقى cortical between الروت هير سيل والزايلم هنشوفها مع بعض وبعد كده تروح للميزوفيل وبعد كده تخرج من الستومات. In all cases you need to know what your plant looks like والorder in which the water is going to move. يبقى المية بتدخل من الروتس وبعدين بتطلع في الزايلم وبعدين it's going to evaporate from the leaf. 1 2 3. طيب هنشوف السؤال ده اتسأل 3 times in different ways. هنشوفه مع بعض. What is the pathway taken by most of the water absorbed by this plant? This is just another way of asking the same question يا عمر اهو. Z roots Y وبعدين X. Z Y X is just another way of saying root stem leaf. Which two substances are transported in the phloem? Amino acids and sucrose. Stick tack مفيش كتر كلام. In what form does a plant absorb and lose water? لسه مجاوبين واحد زي ده في الأول. It comes in as water liquid and leaves the plant as water vapor. طيب. Again هنا the same shoot after 6 hours. إيه اللي حصل؟ What change in the environment could cause this change in the appearance? طبعا حاجة في الانفايرمنت خلت عندي water loss. طيب
water loss, yeah.
طيب حلو قوي. أنا دلوقتي الويلتنج لاحظ إن إحنا عايزين to remind ourselves إن الويلتنج results from إيه؟ إن الwater loss is more than الwater uptake. مش كده؟ loss is more than the uptake. طيب تعال نبص هنا بقى. A decrease in light intensity not true لأن ال decrease في اللايت هيقلل ال transpiration. A decrease in wind هيقلل ال transpiration. And increase in humidity هيقلل ال transpiration. لكن بيقولك a decrease in the available water. لما الووتر اللي موجودة تحت في السويل قليلة يبقى ال water that's being lost is more than the water uptake because أنا ال water uptake بتاعتي has decreased. ما أنا ممكن يا إما أزود اللوس يا إما أقلل الأبتيك. مش كده يا عمر؟ يعني there are two ways to make this imbalance. إن أنا أخلي اللوس أكتر من الأبتيك. There are two ways of doing this. Either by increasing the loss or decreasing the water uptake. فهنا لما تبقى الwater available في السويل قليلة فيبقى الwater going into the plant has decreased. Therefore, the loss is more than the uptake. Are you okay with that يا عمريكو؟ يبقى when you look at all the options he gave you, لا كل الoptions دي هتقلل ال water loss. The only one that's going to cause an imbalance between the uptake and loss is the fact that the water available for soil is less. Are you following?
Yes, Mrs. Just
Okay.
the noise.
Okay. Thank you. What could increase the rate of water uptake by a shoot؟ طبعا هنا bright light هيزود ال transpiration. زي ما انت شايف كده ان هو بيقعد يلف ويدور وهو بيحاول يبقى creative in asking the same question about the same topic اللي هو يعني what are the factors that affect transpiration. Once you know them هتلاقي نفسك الأسئلة كلها سهلة قوي and straightforward. يبقى light, الwind, the temperature, as you increase them, you increase the transpiration. الهيوميديتي هي الوحيدة اللي بالعكس. If you increase the humidity, you decrease the transpiration. طيب, by which process is the water lost? Water is lost by transpiration. Another one of those questions اللي جايب لنا the whole day وبعدين بيقول لك what conclusion can be drawn from the table. The only way you can answer such a question is you have to go over every statement he gives you and see if it's correct or not. طيب once لقيت a correct statement you have to read the rest. لو لقيت two correct statements يبقى كده حضرتك you have misunderstood one of them. طيب between 7 and 5 the rate of flow continuously increases. Between 7 and 5 لا it doesn't continuously increase لأن أنا شايف إن ما بين 3 and 5 حصل drop من 300 نزلنا ل 260 يبقى ده مش continuous increase. The greatest increase in the rate of flow in a 2-hour period is between 11 and 1. طب أشوف من 11 ل 1 حصل زيادة كبيرة قوي. ده حصل هنا 110. فعلا إحنا مش شايفين a difference of 110. لا مفيش. هنا ده أنا حصل drop أساسا. طيب water does not flow up through a tree at night. This is nonsense. We don't see that. مفيش حاجة اسمها كده. إحنا شايفين even at 7 at night في water flowing. Water flow is affected by humidity. We can't tell from the table. We can't tell that it's affected by humidity. يعني هي it's a fact بس بيقول لك a conclusion drawn from this table. لا, the conclusion I can draw from this table is that the greatest increase in flow was between 11 and 1 p.m. طيب in which order does water flow؟ ده اللي انت كنت بتقولي عليه يا عمريكو اهو، الروت كورتكس وبعدين زايلم وبعدين ميزوفيل. مين الروت كورتكس؟ هفكرك ان احنا كنا بنقول ان احنا عندنا روت هير سيل وبعدين ايه كورتيكال سيلز وبعدين بنوصل للزايلم. يبقى هنا المية دخلت من روت هير سيل وبعدين مشيت من one cortical cell to the next. اللي احنا لما كنا رسمنا السكشن كنا عملنا الزايلم هنا كده في النص وايه root hair cells all around وكنا رسمنا a lot of cortical cells in between. فهو هنا بدل ما يجيب لك الروت hair cell قال لك من root cortex. It doesn't change the facts. The water is going to enter from here into the root hair cell, cortical cells, xylem, and then it goes to the mesophyll cells. Type. Which statements about the plant transpiration are correct? Light in plants transpire most when light intensity is high, least when air is humid. صحيح. خلي بالك إنه sometimes he uses the word dry. Dry دي is just another way of saying that the humidity is low. مش كده؟ Okay. يبقى هنا it does transpire most when the humidity is low. But it does not transpire least when the temperature is high. يبقى dry air is just another way of commenting on the humidity. طيب. Which words complete the statement? Transpiration is the evaporation of water at the surface of the mesophyll cells, followed by diffusion of the water vapor from the plant leaves. Loss leaves. ممكن يقول لك diffusion of water vapor from the stomata. يعني ممكن to manipulate the data in different ways ولكن في الآخر we're talking about the same thing. A decrease in which factor normally causes transpiration rate to increase. والله حضرتك as you decrease the humidity, the transpiration is going to increase because this is the only factor when you they work opposite each other. You decrease the humidity, you increase the transpiration. التانيين كلهم you increase them, you increase the transpiration. الstomatal opening لما تزوده it's more open, you are increasing the water loss. مش كده؟ طيب. What is the path of water through a plant? root hair, xylem, mesophyll وبعدين في الآخر هنا حط لك stomata. مش فارق معايا. يقول اللي هو عايزه وأنا مذاكر وعارف. يبقى هو root hair, xylem, mesophyll and then the stomata. بيجيبوا أسئلة مختلفة أو they are creative بالحاجات اللي بيحطوها جوه السؤال. On a dry, sunny day, how does water vapor move through the stomata of a leaf? It moves out of the leaf by diffusion. Tick-tack, to the point. Some liquid is collected from the xylem in the stem of a plant. كويس. What is present in the liquid? From the xylem. خد بالك هو هنا أخد من الزايلم قبل كده أخد من الفلوم. هيلاقي ال inorganic ions اللي احنا قلنا عليهم السولتس أو المينرالز اللي هم هيبقوا nitrates أو phosphates أو magnesium salts. What is the function of phloem vessels? Translocation. طيب وبعدين جه هنا قال لك والله ده احنا أخدنا عملنا نفس اللي احنا عملناه من شوية يا عمر. We've cut through the bark of a tree. فاحنا هنا وقفنا الفلوم. طب ايه اللي هيحصل؟ What effect will removing the bark have on the two branches? هو الحقيقة الupper branch مش هتتأثر. ليه؟ لأن الupper branch جاي محتاجة water and minerals فالwater and minerals طالعة لها عادي. البرانش اللي تحت هو اللي هيتأثر. البرانش اللي تحت هو اللي هيتأثر. اشمعنى؟ والله يا حضرتك الليفز هتبقى نورمال لكن البرانش اللور برانش نفسه الجروث بتاعه هيبقى اقل لانه supply of food قليل. يعني المفروض الفود يبقى جاي كده هون وبيغذي لكن البرانش نفسه مش بيكبر لانه الفود supply قل because the phloem has been cut. فالأكل مش جاي له من فوق. يبقى ال lower branch is going to be affected في الإيه في الجروث بتاعه. لأنه الإيه الفود سبلاي اللي جاي له أقل. طيب. The table shows some characteristics of 4 different plants. 4 different plants. The plants are growing in the same environmental conditions. حلو قوي. Which plant will have the highest rate of transpiration? مين من البلانتس دي هيبقى عندها أعلى rate transpiration؟ والله حضرتك بالنسبة للنمبر of leaves, you'd expect the one that has a high number of leaves would have a high rate of transpiration. ده كلام كويس. So I'd suspect it's either C or D. Average surface area of one leaf. كل ما يبقى surface area كبير كل ما يبقى water loss أكتر. So again we're going to favor إنه number كبير زائد إن surface area كبير. So again I'm still either C or D. Average density of stomata on the leaves. كل ما يبقى الستوماتا أكتر كل ما water loss يبقى أكتر. So هنا لا بص هنا بقى that's 150 ده هنا 275. Wow. So this is a lot more stomata. Average diameter of one stoma. Yeah. يعني أنت عندك lots of stomata وكمان الستوماتا الواحدة is quite big. لا definitely the answer is C. Do you see how C is the answer, Yamr? Are you okay with C?
Yes, miss.
Okay, حبيبي. طيب. What is carried by the xylem? What is carried by the xylem? The xylem carries water and mineral ions. طيب حلو قوي. هنا جايب لحضرتك a celery stalk وحاططها in a beaker of blue dye. Once the dye reaches the leaves, the stalk is taken. Okay. يعني هو هنا جاب لك الستوك دون وحطه in a beaker with blue dye. ساعات blue ساعات red whatever. الداي ده بيبقى dissolved في المية. يعني wherever the water is going up the plant it is going to take with it the blue dye. The water is colored blue. فحضرتك لما المية هتدخل جوه الزايلم it is going to stain الأماكن اللي هتعدي فيها المية blue. طيب بيقول لحضرتك بعد شوية they came and cut السيلري. طبعا السيلري بلانت نفسها الليفز بتاعتها الدنيا قلبت blue because the water has gone up والwater is dyed with the blue color. wherever it goes, this is a very nice experiment. كنا بنعملها في الساينس فير experiments مع الأطفال في primary 3 والحاجات دي. كنت حضرتك تشوف إن you bring a white flower وتحط food coloring في المية. You should do it at home. and you see بعد شوية الفلاور الوايت فلاور دي بتاخد الكالر بتاعت الفود coloring اللي في المية. So it turns orange, it turns blue, it turns whatever color you want. It's very cute. فبيقول لك طيب احنا جينا بقى and we've cut across. What are we going to see? You're going to see the xylem vessels colored blue. مش كده؟ يعني انت xylem vessels هي اللي carrying the water with the blue dye. فبالتالي when you cut through, this is what you're going to see, the blue dye inside the xylem vessels. The answer is going to be B. Okay, Omar?
Okay, miss.
طيب في جون 15 بقى هنا جه قال لك Q shows the part that is stained red when the root is placed in water containing a red dye. حلو. What is found at Q? Xylem. ما فيهاش. يعني عمل زي الاكسبيرمنت اللي فاتت دي بس اخد كروس سكشن في الايه في الروت. فالروت الجزء اللي اخد الريد داي is the part in the center اللي هو الزايلم. What is transported in the phloem and what is the direction of transport? والله sucrose is transported in the phloem and it moves down and up. From which part of a leaf does most water evaporate during transpiration? It evaporates from the spongy mesophyll cells. In which order does the water pass? بص هنا بقى another configuration للسيريز. قال لك اهو root hair, root cortex, xylem وبعدين mesophyll. مفيش مشكلة خالص. By which process is water lost from a leaf? It is lost by diffusion. Water is lost by diffusion. The lower end of a plant stem is placed in water colored with red dye. After 3 hours, the stem is cut as shown in the diagram. Which labeled region is stained red? طبعا A is stained red لأن A ده مين؟ ده الزايلم. Xylem is the part that's going to take up the water. Which graph shows most clearly what will happen to the rate of transpiration as humidity increases? كل ما humidity increase, the rate of transpiration هيقل. So the answer is B. طيب. هنا بقى بيقول لك the plant was left for 24 hours.
Question 16. Miss, could you repeat that? I didn't see it.
Sorry, 16? Which one?
16.
Water is lost by
Yes.
diffusion here. طيب هنا بقى بيقول لحضرتك ايه what causes the change in the appearance of the plant again البلانت هنا ابتدت ايه to wilt الwater loss اكتر من water uptake خلاص ايه على طول which statement is correct for phloem but not for xylem والله حضرتك هتقول لي ان ايه which statement is correct for phloem but not for xylem? It carries mineral ions لا it carries starch لا الفلوم carries sucrose دي حقيقة يبقى carries minerals دي حاجة correct for the xylem carries starch ده لا ده ولا ده both of them don't carry starch it is no longer living ده one is xylem tissue طيب what is correct for phloem vessels they are they carry sucrose and amino acids. Which statement describes how young plants are supported? Young plants are supported as the pressure of the water inside the cells is pressing outwards on the cell walls. دي حقيقة. يعني حضرتك احنا بنتكلم ونقول انه الفاكيول بتبقى turgid مليانة مية فبتبتدي تعمل ايه؟ الفاكيول تبتدي تعمل apply pressure on the cell wall ده internal pressure. وبالتالي يا عمر لما اتكلمنا عن البلانت سيلز كنا بنقول الفانكشن اوف ذا فاكيول انها it stores الووتر والسيل ساب والفانكشن بتاعها انها بتعمل internal support للبلانت ازاي by applying internal pressure على السيل وول. طيب after passing through the root hair cells of a plant that is the next tissue what is the next tissue through which the water passes يعني ايه يعني بيقول لحضرتك جوه الروت بعد الميه ما هتدخل من الروت hair cells where is it going to go قبل عشان توصل بقى جوه البلانت فتقول لي حضرتك هي it's going to pass through the cortical cells مش كده هتعدي على cortex يبقى بعد الروت hair cells it is going to pass through the cortex بتاع الروت عشان توصل للزايلم. كويس. The diagram shows stages in the passage of water through a plant. Which arrow shows water moving in the form of water vapor? لا هي بتتحرك as water vapor فين؟ في B. As it is diffusing بقى out of the airspace out of the stomach. ده كده water vapor. طيب ده كلام جميل جدا.
Could you go back to the page? I didn't get to see any of it.
Okay, let me go back. The page before the Omar? This one?
Page 20.
This one? صوتك بيقطع. Is it page 20?
No,
or
Miss. No.
Which
No,
one?
page 22.
Page 22. Oh, I didn't get there yet. I didn't go to 22 yet. احنا لسه في 21.
Oh, Miss. I don't have page 21.
Okay.
In the file, it didn't show.
Okay, no
I don't know
problem.
why.
Okay, no problem. So احنا هنا okay, you can look at the questions with me. يبقى which graph shows the effect of increasing humidity on the rate of transpiration؟ زي ما اتفقنا humidity is the opposite. If you increase humidity, it is inversely proportional. You increase the humidity, you decrease the transpiration. هنا يا عمر, are you okay with the question at the top of this page اللي هو in which arrow is showing the movement of water as vapor? Are you okay?
Yeah, miss.
طيب الحمد لله. تعال نشوف بقى page 22.
Tomatoes. صح. لا Mrs. Tomato.
It leaves the stomata as water vapor, صح. Like as it enters from the soil, it is in the liquid form. As it moves up the xylem, it's in the liquid form. As it moves from the xylem to the different mesophyll cells, it's still in the liquid form. It turns into water vapor or diffuses as water vapor in the air spaces and as it leaves the stone. Type. The diagram shows part of a cross section through a leaf. Which arrow shows the direction of movement of water by osmosis in a leaf? By osmosis, المية بتتحرك هنا by osmosis. اشمعنى؟ لأن حضرتك B و C ده diffusion مش كده؟ B و C ده هنا this is diffusion. ده هنا كده diffusion. و A ده transpirational pull. transpirational pull. البول بتاعت الترانسبيريشن is moving the water along the xylem vessels. لكن as it moves from one cell to the next, it moves by osmosis. يبقى هنا from D is the one that is showing osmosis. D, as it moves from cell to cell, it is moving by osmosis through the partially permeable cell membrane. Are you okay with that? يبقى A is the transpirational pull. B and C are both diffusion. أي gases داخلة وخارجة دي بتتحرك. Excuse me?
So what is the transpirational pull?
Remember when we said it's like just bringing things up, like the juice being sucked up the straw?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, تمام. طيب يلا بينا نشوف كده. الدنيا أخبارها إيه؟ 4 leafy plant stems were placed into measuring cylinders with 100 cc of water. A layer of oil prevented the water in the measuring cylinder from evaporating. حلو قوي. يعني ده simple form of pottometer. وبعدين بيقول لك the plant stems were exposed to different air humidities and temperatures for 48 hours. حلو جدا. The final volume of water in the measuring cylinder is shown for plant stems 1, 3, and 4. طيب السؤال ده حلو بقى. السؤال ده حلو جدا وعايزين نفهمه. يعني دلوقتي هو جه حط البلانت زي ما احنا شايفينها كده in the measuring cylinders وعمل 4 different plants كلهم نفس المية. تمام. وحطهم في different conditions. green
tea.
طيب فتقول لي ايه بقى حضرتك؟ بيقول لك plant stem 1 was put in low humidity كويس والtemperature كان low فالفاينل volume of water كان 75 كويس كده. لما حطها في high humidity و low temperature الفاينل volume كان 95 يعني هو ابتدى ب 100 سي سي. فلما احنا عارفين انه ايه ان temperature the low temperature is going to lower the rate of transpiration وانه high humidity is going to lower transpiration. فهو لما حط plant 3 in high humidity و low temperature water loss كان 5 ملي بس which makes sense. لما حطها في high humidity بس high temperature it lost 65. لما هنا كان في low humidity يعني الترانسبيريشن زيادة، بس التمبريتشر كان cold فالترانسبيريشن قل. هنا اللوس كان 25 سي سي. فبيقول لحضرتك دلوقتي بقى احنا هنعمل حاجة تانية، هنحطها في low humidity. low humidity ده is going to favor ايه؟ ان يبقى عندي increased ولا decreased water loss لما تبقى humidity low. ايه رأيك؟ low humidity.
Miss Loy, easy.
low humidity معناها high water loss، و high temperature معناها high water loss. يبقى أنا لما كان عندي ال humidity low بس ال temperature كان low، كان عندي ال water loss 75 صح؟ لما كان عندي هنا ال high يعني أنا قصدي إيه يا عمر؟ أنت دلوقتي عندك two factors بتأثر على ال water loss صح؟ لما كانوا عندي one favoring ال water loss اللي هو ال high temperature والتانية not favoring it، كان ال water loss بتاعي 65 هنا. لما كان عندي في plant 1 ال humidity favoring ال water loss بس ال temperature low، كان ال final volume 75. ايه رأيك بقى what do you expect لما يبقوا two factors are favoring water loss؟ يعني هنا انا كان عندي واحد بيشجع الووتر لوس وواحد لا صح، فكان الووتر لوس 75. هنا لما كان في سامبل 4 كان واحد بيشجع الووتر لوس اللي هو الهاي تمبريتشر بس الهيوميديتي بيشتغل ضدها كانت 65. ايه رأيك بقى لما يبقوا الاثنين بيشجعوا الووتر لوس what do you expect to see؟ تقول لي يعني انا لما كان واحد وواحد كنت بتكلم ما بين 75 و 25 صح؟ طيب فما بالك بقى لما يبقوا ايه الاتنين؟ تقول لي مادام الاتنين definitely the water loss هيبقى اكتر، مش كده يا عمر؟ يعني انا لما كانت بس الهيوميديتي اللي favoring الwater loss we lost 25 centimeters. لما كان التمبريتشر بس اللي favoring الwater loss we lost 35. فما بالك بقى ان انا هنا عندي 25 وكمان no humidity. تقول لي اذا الwater loss is going to be less، هيبقى more than to 35. يعني انا الفوليوم اوف ووتر اللي هنا هيبقى at the lowest. ليه؟ علشان ال two conditions were favoring the water loss. معايا يا استاذ عمر؟ You see how the question was solved. It's a very nice question. قول لي يا عمر. انا عارفه ان this is a challenging question. اسألني يا حبيبي.
Yeah, Miss, it was right. If I got it wrong, I wrote B.
But you understand why? I know this is a tough question. I think it's the toughest for a lot. Do you see where the numbers come from?
Miss, so you're saying it depends on humidity and temperature?
I'm not saying the question is saying. I'm not saying. هو مديك variables. هو مديك humidity and temperature. فأنت دلوقتي محتاج تقرا الداتا اللي هو مديها لك. الداتا اللي هو مديها لك بتقول لك إنك أنت دلوقتي the thing that's affecting هنا المنظر دون what do you expect to see when you have low humidity and high temperature؟ هتقولي high temperature is favoring water loss مش كده؟ low humidity is also favoring water loss. يبقى I expect to see more water loss than I have seen in 1 and more water loss than I have seen in 4.
Yeah, Miss, I'm with you.
Okay.
Okay, Miss.
Okay. طيب كلام جميل، ما اقدرش اقول حاجة عنه. اوكي، يبقى نبص بقى حضرتك في الايه اللي بعد كده. هتلاقي الاسئله بقى a lot easier, a lot more straightforward. Which labels are correct? Straightforward. V is the phloem, V is the phloem vessels, and so is Y. يبقى phloem is V and Y, W and Z are xylem tissue. It is straightforward. تيك تاك. ودي من الحاجات اللي احنا قلناها مع بعض، لازم نبقى عارفين الارينجمنت بتاعت الفيسلز. طيب, a piece of copper chloride is clipped to the lower surface of a fresh leaf and is then covered with a plastic as shown. After a few minutes, part of the paper turns pink, showing that water is present. ماشي, حلو قوي. Which process carried by the leaf causes the paper to turn pink? Transpiration, water loss, transpiration. By which process does water escape from the stomata in the leaves? By diffusion. يعني دي حاجات ما فيهاش ايه كتر كلام. Tic tac questions. The diagram shows a cross section of a plant stem. What is the function of the tissue labeled V? V does xylem, وبالتالي it is transporting water and minerals. طبعا if you can't identify the vessels, how can you answer the question? يعني V is the xylem. طيب, what is the pathway?
Miss, what was the
Sorry?
football?
Can you say again?
Miss, what was the answer?
بتاعت ايه يا عمر؟
June 17, 12.
Diffusion.
Okay.
Okay. طيب, what is the pathway taken by the water as it travels through a plant? Straightforward, C. طيب, هنا رجع يسألك which correctly identifies the phloem. طبعا حضرتك you need to be able to identify the phloem في leaf. This is the phloem, this is the phloem, phloem. يبقى the answer is V and Z. Straightforward, يعني you either know it or you don't, ما فيهاش thinking. What is a description of transpiration? Loss of water vapor from the leaves and stem of a plant. Which tissue transports water from the roots to the leaves in a plant? Is xylem. Xylem tissue.
Miss, the answer for 15.
B.
Okay, Miss.
طيب, November 17 بيقول لنا the diagram shows a transverse section through a plant organ. طبعا هنا ده هنا ايه في الروت. This is the root. How can we tell it's the root? طبعا ادي root hair cells وادي الزايلم في النص زي ما احنا اخدنا مع بعض in class, وادي الفلوم vessels. Phloem in a root. M is phloem in a root. Tissue in a root. Tissue in an organ. A. Which words correctly fill the sentences? During transpiration, water moves from the xylem in a leaf and passes into the mesophyll cells. It then leaves the surface of the mesophyll cells by evaporation, and then it diffuses out of the stomata. Straightforward. The answer هنا is D. March 18 بيقول لحضرتك during growth, potato plants produce flowers and underground storage organs called tubers. During this time, which parts of the plant act as source and sink for translocation? والله حضرتك flowers are are the sink, leaves are the source, potato are the sink. ما احنا قلنا ان source is the leaf during daytime when there is photosynthesis, وبقية plant هي sink. يبقى source is the leaf وبقية plant كلها هي sink. طيب, يبقى the answer is B. Which process is an example of translocation? Movement of sucrose from the leaves through the phloem to other parts of the plant. هو ده translocation. طيب, which substance is moved by translocation in a flowering plant? Amino acids. Full stop. دي تيك تاك questions. دي الأسئلة اللي أنا هوفر فيها وقت عشان سؤال زي بتاع اتشي humidity طالع وشي مش عارفة temperature نازل وإيه اللي حصل. دي الأسئلة اللي أنا هسيبها للآخر وأقعد أفكر فيها. لكن أسئلة زي question 17 ده تيك تاك question. What is carried؟ فين الزايلم؟ زايلم شايل إيه؟ الفلوم شايل إيه؟ دي أسئلة مش محتاجة تفكير. طبعا هو هنا جه قطع تاني الفلوم vessels وبيقول لك what is going to be affected الامينو acids and sugar cannot pass to the roots. يعني another way of asking you what does the phloem do, it is carrying the water dissolving الsucrose والamino acids. A plant shoot is placed in a solution of dye. The dye moves up the stem. Under which conditions will the dye move faster? الداي هنا is another word of saying الwater. ما هو الداي عبارة عن color is dissolved in water. فالداي بيطلع عبارة عن صبغة في مية. يبقى ايه اللي هيخلي المية تطلع أسرع؟ How will the water move faster along البلانت بتاعتي؟ الحاجات اللي بتزود الترانسبيريشن. Whatever is going to increase the transpiration يا عمر, like we suck our juice through a straw, whatever is going to cause the juice to move up the straw fastest is going to cause the water, i.e. the dye, to move faster up the plant. يبقى high temperature and low humidity هيخليها to move faster. لكن هو هنا الراجل بيسألك what will cause it to move the slowest. فالslowest يبقى temperature يبقى low والhumidity high. Can you see how the questions are moving along?
Yes, miss.
تمام يا حبيبي. Which is a description of translocation, movement of amino acids and sucrose from the source to the sink. Which processes are used by root hairs to take up ions and water? والله يا حضرتك ions اللي هي minerals اللي هي salts بتخش جوه root hair cells by active transport. والووتر بتدخل الروت هير سيل باي اوزموزس. الكلام اللي احنا قلناه over and over. Which of the following increases transpiration? ايه اللي هيزود الترانسبيريشن؟ والله هتقول لي بقى water molecules in the leaf with more kinetic energy. ما هي كل ما يبقى water molecules عندها more kinetic energy يبقى more evaporation و more diffusion. Which process occurs during transpiration? والله water vapor is going to leave through the stomach. Tick tack. طيب, this is one of the questions that if you get in an exam paper you leave it, make a lucky guess كده وخلص البيبر وارجع لها. This is one of those things you put a mark next to it and come back to it at the end. لأنها محتاجة شوية thinking. السؤال ده حلو برضو يا عمر والفكرة بتاعته بسيطة. بيقول لحضرتك جاب 4 leaves كلهم same species وحطهم balanced اهو on a thread. وحط ايه leaves on both sides of a straw. حلو قوي. وبعدين جه حط grease ده another word for petroleum jelly اللي هو فازلين. وبعدين ايه اللي هيحصل؟ فتقولي حضرتك لما يحصل more water loss from one side معناها الناحية التانية هتبقى heavier. فتلاقي انك انت بدل ما هي كانت balanced كده هتلاقي ان ال straw is going to be imbalanced. اللي هيبقى فوق the one that lost more water. طيب, at the start of the experiment the straws were positioned so that the leaves were level. Which leaves will be lower after 1 hour? يعني انت lower leaves lower معناها less water loss. طيب, أنا عندي leaf 1 ما عندهاش covering و leaf 2 both sides are covered, which means إنه هنا leaf 1 is losing water من فوق ومن تحت. مش كده؟ يبقى is going to lose more water. يبقى more water loss. يبقى أنا بعد شوية هلاقي المنظر ده عامل إزاي كده أهو. اشمعنى؟ because one lost more water than two. Are you following معايا يا عمر؟ ف2 بقت إيه؟ down. طيب, جينا بقى في ال two leaves
Yes,
اللي
miss.
تحتهم. ال two leaves اللي تحت. You have covered the upper surface وهنا you've covered the lower surface. Mean which one would lose more water? فتقول لي والله if you've covered the upper surface انت هنا عملت لي ايه؟ upper surface only. يبقى انت سايب a lot of stomata مفتوحة. يبقى انا هنا عندي more water loss. ليه؟ لأنك انت هنا you've covered the lower surface. The lower surface هنا مقفول. ف you're only going to lose through the few stoma اللي موجودين فوق. لكن هنا انت عندك lots of stoma موجودة تحت. and you've left them open. يبقى هنا more water loss, هنا less water loss. يبقى 2 and 4 are going to be heavier. شايف السؤال حلو ازاي؟ فعلا سؤال جميل جدا. طيب وبعدين هنا تقول لي والله what do the arrows at X represent؟ طبعا انا هنا بيقول لك sunlight، البلانت عملت photosynthesis اهي، والدليل انه هنا انا هنا في الفلوم فيسلز. عرفت منين ان انا في الفلوم يا استاذ عمر؟ لان انا شايف ارو طالع لفوق ونازل لتحت. لو كنت انا جايبه لك الزايلم كنت هتلاقي ان الميه ماشيه in one direction بس. لكن because I have an arrow moving up and an arrow moving down, I'm talking about the phloem. يبقى هنا طبعا the amino acids in the phloem vessels. طيب November 17, what is the function of translocation to transport amino acids for the growth of new leaves? طبعا. طيب what is not a use of water by plants dissolving cellulose؟ ليه؟ لأن الcellulose is an insoluble large polysaccharide، مش كده؟ يبقى ده هنا insoluble large molecule، مش هتدوب في المية أساسا. So it is not one of the functions of the water إنها to dissolve the cellulose. The diagram shows part of a plant root. فبيقول لك at which labeled point is the water potential highest. طبعا ال water potential highest at D، عشان كده المية هتدخل من ال high water potential to the low water potential inside. يبقى أعلى water potential في السويل. والسؤال ده شفناه like 3 or 4 times. ال water moves through the stomata by diffusion. وبكده يا أستاذ عمر نبقى خلصنا ال transport in plants. اسألني يا عمر. What do you need?
Miss, thanks, Miss. It's all, Miss, all of it is, yeah, Miss, I understand.